5 on a Thursday morning, and that's time we focus on Shelton, presented by the great folks at our Community Credit Union. Mark Ziegler in studio. Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Good morning.
We've been talking, and I think you came in kind of at the beginning of this survey. Parks and Rec is doing a survey to kind of figure out the needs and wants of folks in the city, and it's starting to come to a conclusion here.
Yeah, exactly. This is all part of our Parks, Recreation, Open Space, and Trails plan, and we're rewriting the plan to kind of give us the roadmap, is what I like to call it, for the city over the next 6 years on how we want to address parks and recreation needs as the city changes, demographics change, population changes, conditions change, the available lands certainly change as development occurs. So we want to address that and want to know what the people want and need in this community.
So I get that the parks and what a park is, and people recreate in a park, but what would be in the use of open space? What's the deal there?
Well, open space serves several functions, I guess. One is just it's natural habitat, so it can be for not only wildlife but also human people, human people.
Yeah.
For the people, so they
Sure.
they can access that property. It's more of a passive recreation area, so you might find nature trails in it, or it's just preserves. So,
Okay.
So it might be critical habitat, wetlands, drainages, creeks, forest land that would provide for habitat corridors. So the wildlife in the area can move from one place to the other through the community.
Yeah, okay, I see what you're saying.
Habitat for birds and things like that as well. But it also adds to the overall sense of our community. We've always been a timber town. We've always had trees around here. But as the urban area grows, it gets more built in an urban sense. Parking lots, buildings, things like that. You start losing that canopy and start losing that tree cover. So we want to certainly preserve part of that in our community. It's our rich heritage, and be able to address that concern and those needs of our community, because they certainly like that. We're seeing that through our surveys and through feedback as well.
So the city obviously is growing, and there's always conversations about the growth and size of the city. But if you get a lot of things saying we want new areas, new spaces, how do you incorporate that into a city that already has a boundary? You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, absolutely. Frankly, you have to sit down at the map and look at it. You look at where your opportunities are. What properties do the city already own that might provide those services? So whether it's city watershed property by the high school, there's 250 acres of woodland up there that was used as watershed property. The Huff and Puff Trail is located on it. The disc golf course, Shelton Springs disc golf course, is located. So are there other opportunities to provide not just open space or active or passive recreation opportunities there? Are there other areas that the city owns throughout the community, throughout the city limits? Is there private property that might become open for sale in the future? And to identify those, maybe talk with property owners. It might be conservation easements, maybe purchasing the development rights on some properties to make sure they're maintained as open space or habitat within our communities. It's working through our critical areas plan, our comp plan, to address buffers and setbacks for our creeks and our waterways and our steep slopes and things like that can help serve as some of those habitat and open space areas as well.
Sure.
I've only been, family's only been here for just over a year, so I don't know if it's kind of a seasonal thing, but we love taking people visiting to Overlook Park and looking out down at Shelton and stuff, and we noticed the last few times, and it seems like it's overgrown, like you can't see the view at all anymore.
Yeah.
Is that just seasonal? Like when the leaves start dropping, does it clear out, or is that something that needs to be cut back every once in a while, or how does that work? Because that's one of the key reasons people go up there, is to look down at the view at Shelton.
It's called Overlook Park for a reason, right?
Yeah, and you can't really see much right now, to be honest.
You try to look over the trees.
I'm not tall enough.
Maintenance practices and standards have changed over the years, and it used to be back in the day that somebody, sometimes city staff would just go over the hill and cut a bunch of those trees down, let them lay, and open up the view. now that's not best practice. You have railroad tracks, you have adjoining properties down below that you could affect with that debris,
Sure.
or some of the mitigation that or the impacts that might come with logging that. So we've changed some of our practices there. It's grown up. Obviously, the leaves fall off. It's easier to view out into Oakland Bay and the working waterfront. And it's, I guess, just a fact of life. If they're evergreens, they're a little easier. A lot of them are maples, deciduous trees. They grow leaves, obviously, that fall, during the season. But they also grow differently. You can't quite climb a lot of those, especially as they were cut way back when they developed, runners and suckers, and they're not real strong singular tree trunks, dominant leaders that you can climb up and trim. So some of the maintenance activities before have hindered what we could do now. And some of the property is not city property, it's private property as well, down at the bottom of the hill. So
a lot of factors involved.
I don't know if it's Burlington Northern or what the railway is, owns that property coming up the hill part of the way too. So then you're dealing with a different property owner. And so yeah, it's a comment we get quite often. We'd like to seek a solution because it is a unique feature. It's a stop for our, into our community where people can stop and check things out. And if you get them to stop someplace, they're more likely to stop at one of our local businesses. Check out another attraction. Spend some money here and become tourists and provide to our economy.
Here's an idea then. What if you took like the thing down at the Port of Olympia? They've got that tower thing. Yeah. One of the service groups could get together and work on something like that, and you go up a couple flights of stairs.
You got me on that fire truck ladder, 105 feet up. Now you want me to climb another thing?
Then you just expand it as the trees grow.
It's a modular
80 stories high.
But I've noticed that too. But in the winter, there's a lot of the leaves that do go away, and you're able to get some nice looks.
And we'll have a better look at it at that point too, and we can see what we're dealing with, on the ground.
I mean, I guess you can't. I understand you can't just clear cut, rip the trees out, because that would make the ground perhaps unstable and things like that. Are there opportunities to just kind of top them?
Yeah, and that's what's been done in the past, and that's why you get these bushes rather than trees. Essentially. And that becomes really labor intensive. And do we focus on our playgrounds and our ball fields and our restrooms, or we go up and we work on trees on a hillside.
So what are folks talking about on the survey? What do they want to see?
We've had about 170 responses. We'd really like to have more, and we have this open through September 1st. So a couple more weeks to get responses in. The responses right now, I don't want to skew the the results here, but the responses really trend towards trails, water access, and neighborhood parks, and those are kind of the top three. And that's been common probably the last 20 years in my experience here. Those are really the focus on our community, and really our parks haven't changed a whole lot in that time too. So it really shows that that there's a need within bringing some neighborhood parks in some of the communities that are underserved, some of the neighborhoods in the city that are underserved. Our standard right now is a half-mile service radius for every neighborhood park, so you can essentially walk to a neighborhood park, and it might be a little smaller. It's not necessarily the size of Neeland. A little smaller park, not as many amenities, but some amenities that you could walk to easily. Say kids after school could go to the park real quick, play a game, play around in the field. Maybe there's a play structure. Maybe have a little picnic, on a Saturday, and then it's not necessarily a destination.
What's the water access? What would that be identified at? Is that the creeks and rivers, or is that down to the bay?
I think Oakland Bay is probably the most important access point that we're hearing from people.
What, that Eagle Creek area from the port, right?
Yeah, we have Eagle Point. We have 8 acres of uplands and about 4 acres of tidelands out Fairmont, at the end of Fairmont and the beginning of Walker Park Road. And so we're going to address that next year. We're formulating our budget now, and some design elements would be included within that budget, so we can start some master planning on that and see how we can provide the public access out there. It's a beautiful piece of property. It'd be great hiking, walking trails, and possibly kayak launch and things like that. Out there on Oakland Bay.
SheltonWA.gov, under departments, you'll see Parks and Recreation. Scroll down a little bit there, and you'll see on the Parks and Recreation left hand of the tab, Parks, Rec, Open Space Trails Plan. That gets you to kind of that survey that is open again till the 1st of September.
Yeah.
So make sure you fill that out so they know in the city and Parks and Rec what you are looking for to kind of beautify, even more beautify, I guess, if that's proper grammar. I don't believe it is. You know what I'm talking about. Mark, good to see you.
Likewise. Can I talk about one more
Please.
thing? We have a couple camps coming up the first week of September that we're trying to promote. We have a girls basketball camp and a cheer camp. They'll be held up at Shelton High School, conducted by the high school coaches. So we want to get that information out here if anybody hasn't heard of it. We're still taking registrations, and again, that's the first week of September, right after Labor Day. We'll run for 4 days up there at the high school and give some kids the opportunity to kind of hone their skills, I guess, before the
school year starts.
Yeah.
Man, it's coming up quick.
Yeah.
Mark Ziegler from Parks and Rec here for our Focus on Shelton. It's presented by the great folks at Our Community Credit Union this and every week. We'll put the interview up on our website and Facebook page as well.